From the innovators of Delay of Game and 2 for 2 comes a new sports talk forum, but with the same mentality, to bring you the top sports headlines in a simple way.
With Ryan Swanigan.
I only I glazed over it, yeah.
Now you're just more than sniffing my socks. LOL. Woo!
And Brent Bonfleur.
Oh, okay, so, that is totes my fave dress. Tetuan! Camila Villegas. I'm feral.
You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast.
Welcome in to the show, and I'm going to just start off immediately by saying there is no Husker football podcast today. Devin Cleach is back home in northwest Iowa, probably trying to figure out what he wants to do with himself, with his future with Nebraska football, as a lot of Husker fans probably are trying to figure out right now. One of them is not Brent Bonfleur, because you've got the Florida Gators.
Yeah. All they've got left is a game against Vandy to lock up a spot in the SEC championship.
Ready to take on those LSU Tigers again,
and this time
rematch.
Les Miles won't be able to win on a fake field goal.
Well, you never know.
Which was barely worked the first time. The guy bobbled the ball for 6 seconds and then finally ran it in.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, hey.
But anyways, no Husker football podcast if you're looking for one. We will talk about the Huskers in this show, though, in the debut of our new segment without an intro, by the way. It's called
work in progress.
Yeah, well, sure. That's what's really going on with Brent Bonfleur. So we will have that in the show. Facebook.com/TheRoute2 and on Twitter @the_Route2. Also our website, theroute2.wordpress.com. And of course, cannot forget what we're hoping for will be a delay of game return podcast edition, at which I failed to mention this. That will also signal the end of the route, by the way. We're not going to keep running both. It's going to be one or the other. So stay tuned for January of 2016. But for now, for the third week in a row now, it's time to rant about baseball. And it's actually something very significant. So cue my music, please.
Yes, it's time for the original Ryan's rant, but Ryan goes off on something that's more fake than fake or completely improbable. This used to air on his old show, but now he's gone from that show, so he's here on the route. And so, Ryan's rant can continue to harvest life's absurd issues that have simple solutions if logic is applied. In short, we just call this segment Ryan's Rant.
So, there has been really nothing substantial to rant about the past 2 weeks for baseball. I admit it. But this week is a good one because we haven't had something like this in a while. Probably, man, we gotta go back to when I was on delay of game to have something really substantial to rant about. And this is one of them. And it relates to a very close friend of mine's team. And I wish that Matt Rigby was here to either defend this or back me up or whatever. But Noah Syndergaard in Game 3 the other night of the World Series threw at Alcides Escobar the first pitch of the game. Now, Alcides Escobar has been literally hitting the first pitch of every single game. And smartly so, because normally, and the numbers back this up, a lot of the time, first pitches thrown by major league pitchers are for strikes. More than half the time. And Alcides Escobar has been recognizing that and has been seeing that, hey, If it's going to be a first pitch strike, might as well take advantage of it. And he has done exactly that in a time that matters the most, the World Series. So what I'm getting at here with Noah Syndergaard is he decided that, well, I'm not going to give him the first pitch to swing at. I'm going to throw one right at him. And Noah Syndergaard did not hit Alcides Escobar. He knocked him down, but with a high heater. And the fallout from that was the Royals, obviously, and rightfully so, did not take too kindly to what Syndergaard did. But it's also the fact that Noah Syndergaard later admitted that he intentionally threw at Alcides Escobar, and he later said, and I quote, "If they have a problem, meet me 60 feet, 6 inches away." Now, that has a lot of issues all over the place. First of all, this is the World Series, and you can look to what Shawn Rodriguez did against the Cubs in the NL wildcard game. There was no intent by Jake Arrieta to hit the two Pirates batters. Now, what former Husker Tony Watson then did was hit Jake Arrieta, and of course that started the benches clearer, and Shawn Rodriguez getting tossed, and he punched a cooler. That, if you really seriously think that Jake Arrieta is going to try and sacrifice the Cubs going to the playoffs just to hit two Pirates, you're out of your mind. As far as Noah Syndergaard goes, same thing. You're out of your mind. If you want to try and start something in the World Series to get suspended, let alone ejected, I mean, you got to be kidding me. You don't pull stunts like that in the World Series. And I am not saying that from keep it professional, this is a sacred thing. No. I'm coming from a common sense standpoint. If you want to lose in a clean sweep to the Kansas City Royals, you do something like that. Thankfully for Syndergaard and the Mets, they ended up winning the third game. Now, am I surprised that this is coming from a 23-year-old kid in baseball? Not really. Because we see stupid stuff from young athletes all the time. Look at how many stupid things Bryce Harper has done. Look how many dumb things Johnny Manziel has done. So it just goes on and on and on with young athletes in professional sports doing stupid things that they shouldn't be doing and not understanding the gravity of the situation. Again, this is the World Series. And you're telling me that you want to hit somebody or knock somebody back just so that way they don't jump on the first pitch. Here's a better idea. Alcides Escobar has been jumping on the first pitches because the first pitches have been fastballs. You want to throw something up there, try a two-seamer away. Try a changeup. Try a slider away. Mix up your pitches. This is such a basic fix for Syndergaard. I can't believe I'm even having to spit this out because it's like, really? You had to do that approach instead of maybe throwing a different pitch, locating on the corners, not pumping heat right down the middle. It's as simple as that, quite honestly. But the basic point of this is, and this could almost go under it's your world and we're just living in it, to Noah Syndergaard, because once again, young athlete doing a dumb thing on an enormous stage that you just don't find anybody else doing. And it didn't really pay for it, but that doesn't mean he won't when the Royals and Mets square off in opening week of 2016 in Kansas City. That's going to bode over rather well for Royals fans. But at the end of the day, Noah Syndergaard, it's your world, and we're all just living in it. You keep doing that dumb stuff. See how far it gets you. And then we can revisit the common sense in sports aspect, I guess. But my point of this rant today is what Noah Syndergaard did. It's pathetic. It's stupid. It's almost low in certain aspects. But hey, his team is not up 3-1 right now. The Royals are. And, I mean, Noah Syndergaard did get the win the other night, but don't expect that to be the end of this entire situation moving forward. Opening day will be here sooner than you know it. And believe me, you can take your pick on who just might be sending a message to the Mets or Syndergaard, because Yordano Ventura has been known to do stupid stuff like that. Again, another prime example in baseball of somebody who is young in professional sports doing stupid stuff. Yordano Ventura has been there. So this isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. It's been it's been postponed because it's the World Series. Now, again, this shouldn't have even happened, but Noah Syndergaard does what he wants to, I guess, for whatever reason. And I guess basically the Royals are saying, we'll see you in Kansas City in 2016. Lovely stuff from Noah Syndergaard, another young professional athlete who thinks he's above common sense. But as always, I do digress, and we'll see what happens going forward.
You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast. On Facebook.com/TheRoute2 and on Twitter at @the_Route2. It's time now for Out of Play, the part of The Route where Ryan Swanigan and Brent Barnfloor discuss one major controversial sports story from the week.
So I guess you could say it's not really controversial in what we're going to be discussing here, but this happened, unfortunately, I think in the middle of recording our podcast, Brent, or after we recorded it. But Miami Hurricanes decided to fire head coach Al Golden, and then they went and won and beat Duke last night, which was stranger than anything we've ever seen in our lives.
Did you see the play?
I saw the play.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah, well, it's coming out now. The ACC is, I think, suspending those refs.
Because they missed
the
it?
Call. Yeah. The guy was down
I was going to say, it looked like, first of all, it looked like they committed a forward pass in there somewhere. And then it did look like one of the Miami players was down when he had the ball.
Yeah, he just kind of threw it up, yeah.
So then that means, can't they change the outcome of the game then?
I don't know.
Because if he was down, then the play is over. The touchdown doesn't count. You take the points off the board, and it's over right there.
Right.
So
I don't know if you
Duke
can do
wins.
that after the fact.
I don't understand why you can't. Why can't you do that?
Yeah.
If something wrong happened, you go and fix it, right? Am I wrong?
Well, I think because the play was obviously reviewed,
right,
and the refs upheld it. So if you do that, then think about all the games that Des Bryant catch, the inter-touchdownception, these controversial plays.
We have that. We have that soundbite from one Cody Broder.
Inter-touchdownception.
Yeah. People would just challenge them over and over, and then eventually, at what point does it have to stop? I think they just rule that.
But you're correcting a wrong, though. That's my point. We're about. I think we're about making things right. Are we not?
Maybe it works if there's conclusive evidence, but the refs are supposed to see that anyway. So I think they just kind of the going rule is, I don't know this for a fact, but if the refs review it and they don't overturn it, it's kind of like, okay, that's the buck stops there.
Well,
because think about how many
I
teams
don't think it
just
should
challenge final plays or plays in their game, because, when does that stop? Is it just on the last play of the game that they can do this? Or can it be any play? Because, this is, you could really make the argument for this one. Yeah, it's the final play, but how often is that the case? And, would it only apply to the final play of a game?
True.
Granted, a lot of games, end on the final play, but, things like that Des Bryant catch, which wasn't the final play of the game, but would have, most likely won that game. Can you challenge things like that? It would just get way too messy. So I think they just keep it with whatever the refs rule, that's what it is. Sorry, it's sports. Ultimately, I know it matters a lot.
You could throw in the Seahawks-Lions game, too.
Right, yeah, something like that. Yeah, and it's just it would get very messy, I think, and they're just going to avoid that by... The refs had the opportunity to review that, and they upheld it. I don't know if they said confirmed or if they said stands, but they upheld their ruling.
I think play stands is called. That would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I'm guessing that's why they don't do that. Maybe the official rule is different. But
I still think something about that needs to change.
Wow.
Heck, we should have made this our out of play.
Yeah, there you go.
We're talking about Al Golden, or we start to, and then we get on this tangent.
Well, it was a big storyline.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So Al Golden gets fired. Interestingly enough, we've got a whole bunch of Nebraska connections in this show, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Al Golden was a Shawn Eichorst hire in the one lone year that Shawn Eichorst was at the University of Miami.
I did not know that.
You did not know this?
No.
Yes. That was, I think, the only hire that Shawn Eichorst had when he was at Miami before he jumped ship.
Al Golden?
Yeah. Now, see, again, I've always been skeptical of what went on under Shawn Eichorst at Miami in his 1 year, because you had an NCAA investigation going on. Shawn Eichorst jumped that and came to Nebraska, so he washed his hands of that. He hired Al Golden. Al Golden is now fired. And then, of course, you throw in what's all going on here at Nebraska.
Right.
And
that makes me
again, it's all how you almost never see Shawn Eichorst except at major things or press conferences.
I've seen him one time for about 5 seconds.
Ran
away.
I still go back to the story where I invited him during a softball broadcast to come on the air with us on KRNU.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
Of
he
course
just
not.
stood there in the room next door with Husker Vision, looking at his phone and watching the game, and he never came over. I motioned him twice, and he never came over.
Well,
so
sorry.
I don't know. I thought, I was like, what?
He's a weird guy. I don't
He's a very
think very many
interesting
people
person.
like Shawn Eichorst, and I think most of that stems from most people don't know anything about Shawn Eichorst
because he
what
kind
you
of makes
hear
sure
is all you
that's
have
the
to
case.
go off of. And what you hear is that he's kind of a sketchy guy. So
Well, he's not sketchy in that sense. He's sketchy in the fact that we just don't know anything about him because he never. Who has had a chance to sit down one-on-one and interview Shawn Eichorst?
I don't think anyone.
Exactly.
Maybe his wife, I don't know, is he married at dinner?
I think so.
At night? Maybe she gets to talk to him, or does he just like
I don't know. That's
the
point we're getting to here.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on.
Okay, well, I did not know that connection. But we got to go back to Al Golden again. Let's get back to Al Golden.
So Al Golden gets fired.
Yeah.
Miami wins in the first game after he leaves.
Yeah. Granted, the game
after
before,
he gets fired,
they got shut out 58-0, and then won on a Hail Mary of all Hail Mary plays.
Exactly. And again, my point with this going back to Nebraska ties here, as you're gonna be seeing throughout the show, how does that, one, make the Nebraska-Miami game look? Two, how does that make Nebraska look?
Yeah.
Because Nebraska lost in overtime to Miami after the Huskers stormed back after Miami was blowing him out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So Al Golden now gets fired. It makes that game against Nebraska look really strange now, really. And then it also makes Nebraska look even worse.
Well,
Because Nebraska has now, because, hindsight 2020 here, Nebraska has lost to a team that fired its head coach in the middle of the season.
yeah, but that was Miami was a better team at that point in the season than they are now.
True.
And I think that's a real thing. People say,
Were they though?
But I think so. Well, what was their record at that point? Weren't they 3-1?
They were
or something
undefeated because they had taken on two barn burner programs.
Well, still, everyone at that point, that's the only people they've played. So
Nebraska had played BYU and lost in a Hail Mary.
Is Brad Kaya any worse of a quarterback now than he was
He
then?
is, yeah. He lost his starting job. Did you not see that either?
No.
My goodness.
Well, okay. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about, but
Brad Kaya is no more. At least, yes, last night he wasn't. He did not start last night.
Yeah.
He lost his starting job.
oh, to who?
Some kid. I don't even know who he is.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to pull it up right now. I'm going to
right.
show you that it's not
Well, while
Brad
you're
Kaya.
doing that,
No, it was Malik Rozier.
Oh.
Malik Rozier got the start. He was 20 of 29, 272. 2 touchdowns and a pick.
Yeah.
No more Brad Kaya.
We'll see if that holds up.
Hey, I think it will.
Okay.
I'm thinking it will.
I don't know, Brad Kaya's
Rozier
pretty good.
kind of helped lead the charge, come from behind victory. So.
Yeah, well, so did Cardell Jones for Ohio State last season, and look what happened to him.
No, before JT Barrett decided to get drunk on Saturday morning.
Yeah. Well, yes, he's going to have
Or
his job back for a
he
week.
was impaired. I'm sorry. He was impaired while driving.
Yeah.
He was
whatever.
doing some stupid stuff, as it basically goes down as.
Back to Al Golden. I think this is. I don't know if it's a good move by Miami because I don't know who else they're gonna get, but I think it probably
out of
was
options.
because it's been over 4 years. This was gonna be his 5th complete season, right? Mm-hmm. So you gave him enough time. That's plenty of time. I think 3 is about the but he's after 3 years, he obviously showed them something
Right.
that made them want to keep him on for at least a full another year.
Kind of like with Bo Pelini.
With this year, right. Yeah, something like that. And is anyone going to look back and say, no, we don't want Bo Pelini. We wanted someone else during that span? No. Nebraska is one of the only, 2 programs to win at least 9 games every season in that
3.
span? 3. Oh.
Oregon and Alabama.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty good company.
That's pretty good company. So is anyone going to say, I wish we didn't have that span in our program's history? No. Now,
Of course not. Especially nowadays.
Al Golden in Miami didn't exactly have that good of a run. So maybe so, but I think it was, maybe eventually time for Miami just to say, okay, this isn't going as we expect. I mean, they had a above 500 record. It's not like the guy just absolutely tanked. But this, again, like you said, we're going to link this back to Nebraska. The fans in Miami are still living in the past. And they think that they're...
This goes back to what I was talking about 2 weeks ago. And we're going to have this on our show at some point.
Yeah.
Programs that get caught up in a championship run that spans more than 3 years, or success that spans more than 3 years.
Yeah.
Nebraska, Miami, USC. I think Michigan was in that point before, and now they might have gotten out of it. But there are other programs out there.
Penn State.
Penn State is another
Michigan,
one.
yeah.
I was thinking of another one, perhaps.
Texas.
I think Texas. Yes, Texas is another one. I think, at least from what it looks like, perhaps Oregon and Oklahoma are going down those same paths.
Yeah.
Maybe Alabama is going to be approaching that as well.
As
We
soon as
don't
Nick
know.
Saban leaves.
Exactly. Programs that go through a long, consistent run of success and championships, and then the fallout, that happens after they have passed the peak,
Right.
the crescendo. And this is what's happening at Nebraska. at USC, at Miami. They're now through, since they're great coaches, 3 or 4 different head coaches have come and gone since that time. So, and again, we're going to probably have to make this an out of play at some point coming up soon here, because this is just, it continues to be more and more relevant with programs that were so good, and now they're past that, and the fans expect that same greatness when they can no longer achieve it because times have changed. And so athletic directors are under pressure, the head coaches are under pressure, they get booted, the coaches get booted, and now you see the turmoil that's going on at Miami and at USC.
What you get for giving into that pressure, because we all know where that pressure comes from.
It comes from the fan base.
Who know almost nothing.
So we'll get into that a little bit later on, probably, hopefully next Sunday if there's nothing major going on. Probably should have gotten to it today. But anyways, meanwhile, up in Minnesota, this isn't controversial at all. This is just downright sad and depressing. Jerry Kill had to retire due to health reasons earlier in the week. I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in there. Very, very unfortunate for him and really Minnesota as well, because it certainly looked as if the Golden Gophers were starting to make a change for the better with Jerry Kill at the helm, leading that program.
The program was finally on the up.
Yeah, and
which is another one of those programs that people don't know that Minnesota used to be very, very good in the 60s. That was a
long time ago.
That was back in the 60s, but they won how many championships in the 60s? I don't know.
2 or 3?
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
But anyway, that's...
But very sad to see Jerry Kill have to retire because of his health. It's understandable. We have seen...
This
unfortunately,
was long overdue.
Yeah, unfortunately, multiple times where Jerry Kill has had seizures either on the sideline, before games, during practice. It's just unfortunate, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer, more comedic and bound-determined football coach than Jerry Kill. And certainly we wish him all the best, and we wish Minnesota the best, because...
They'll be okay. Because here's the thing. Jerry Kill is just one of those guys that, I mean, he's old school. You know, he was just that eat, drink, sleep, live football. And that was the culture that he put in place there. And I think even though he's gone, he's, some of his coaching staff is still there. I can't think of the guy's name right now that filled in for him. It's one of the coordinators. I think it was the defensive coordinator. Anyway, so that culture is still there. Obviously, not as much when you don't have the guy who is so recognizable and so crucial in implementing that. But
Tracy Clay's.
Yeah.
Tracy Clay's new head coach.
Yeah.
Interim head coach, I should say.
So I think the program will be fine. What he started there is going to last. I don't know how long, but I think it's going to continue to grow, because Minnesota, until like the past maybe 2 seasons, we'll say, or even I just want to say until last season.
Last season.
Pretty terrible. And so they are definitely on the up and up, and Jerry Kill is obviously a huge, huge part of that.
They were like Purdue. Before, even in the beginning parts of Jerry Kill's tenure there, they were one of the jokes of the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, not so much
this
anymore.
This has been building, and
just certainly hope it would continue without Jerry Kill there. Certainly.
I think it will.
I certainly hope so, too. I'm kind of rooting for Minnesota to continue to have success there without Jerry Kill.
This brings up another thing that we need to talk about eventually, which is the pressure on college coaches.
I think that would fit into
immense.
that. Yeah, that would fit in with the general discussion of programs with that had success that dropped off.
Yeah, well, and Jerry Kill's a great example. They're saying he was staying up for like 23 hours a day. He's like sleeping for an hour.
You can't.
He wasn't taking medications his doctor told him to take for his epilepsy, which he said has taken years off his life.
Yeah. That's,
I mean, oh my
that's
gosh,
not good.
all to just stay on the field and coach a football team. How many people would do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think more actually in his case, pressure is a huge part, but I think he genuinely loved what he was doing. And so that's the majority of the reason. But I know the pressure to perform was definitely there, and it is for a lot of other coaches because you just see him. I mean, everyone looks at when a new president is elected, their hair when they get elected, and
Look
then
at
4
Obama's
years
hair.
later, Obama, George
Obama's
Bush,
hair,
almost every president
to right now.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
Same thing with college football coaches. I remember Urban Meyer when he first came to Florida. Looked young, healthy, real good.
Look at him now.
He just looked. I mean,
look at Bo Pelini. You remember the early days of Bo Pelini, 2007,
Nick
2008?
Saban's another one. Yeah.
And now look at Bo Pelini now. He is just aged because the pressure is ungodly.
And the stress. Nick Saban looks terrible now.
And that's what happens, and that's what comes with high-end programs like Miami, USC, Texas, Bama,
Jim
Nebraska,
Harbaugh.
Ohio State.
Jim Harbaugh's still a young guy, but he doesn't look good at all for his age.
Well, that's a combination of coaching at Stanford, and then he left at the peak of success after Andrew Luck went to the NFL. Then he went to the 49ers. Now, that is where, he kind of started to look like he was aging a little bit because of Trent Baalke and Jed York and the pressure that they were throwing on him and the fan base because he had just been so successful. And since the Super Bowl, it had just gone downhill because now that's not really a fan base thing. That is a GM that's a Jed York, Trent Baalke.
It doesn't matter where the pressure comes from.
True.
But
it is
trust me, I can't speak from any experience, obviously, but I'm going to guess that the pressure from inside weighs a lot more heavily than any pressure from the outside from the fans because who cares what the fans think? I'm sure Jim Harbaugh does not care what the fans think, but when it's your boss,
that's a little different.
It's a
little different.
You gotta answer. So
in the NFL versus college football, I think, because you have to answer to two people. In college football, more often than not in the case of Nebraska, you have to answer to one. Here at Nebraska, you got to answer to two. But at least for now, soon it will be only one because I don't think the new chancellor is going to be as what am I trying to say? As
involved,
prevalent in athletics as Harvey Perlman was. So, but that's a story for another time. We are going to move on to Under Review.
You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast. Available online at theroute.wordpress.com and on YouTube.
Two important games from the week are now under review.
So, we are bringing this back after, like a 2-3 week hiatus with Under Review.
Was it really?
I think so. It's been a little while since we've taken a look at two games. But we will actually include an NFL game for like the first time in a month in Under Review, and we will take a look at the dominant Patriots and the Dolphins. And the reason why more so is to just take a look and I guess bring up the question of are the Patriots the team that can actually go, one, undefeated this season, and two, win the Super Bowl again. And we'll get to that in a moment. First, quick numbers. Tom Brady, brilliant again, as he always is in Foxborough. 26 of 38, 356, 4 touchdowns, sacked twice, but no interceptions. Ryan Tannehill doing what a converted wide receiver moving to the quarterback position will usually do at this stage of the game. 28 of 44, 300 yards, not bad, but no touchdowns and 2 interceptions, was sacked 5 times. As far as rushers go, Lamar Miller went from almost 300 yards to 15 yards. Hence why I was not going to buy that trick of picking him up in my fantasy league. Devin Cleach, you can have him because that's what you're really going to get from Lamar Miller. Ouch. Not that 1 week of blazing a trail of glory. I picked up LeGarrette Blount. He didn't do too bad. 17 carries, 72 yards. Got me 7 points. Not too bad. I needed every bit of them right now because I think I'm still beating Brent in fantasy football because it looks like we're both having trouble picking up points again.
Everyone is.
I don't understand.
NFL games at this point, I know this won't matter when people actually hear this podcast, but I mean, no one's scoring. No one's doing anything. Except Drew Brees. He's going crazy.
Of course. Go figure. But anyways, once again, Rob Gronkowski being Gronk, 6 receptions, 113 yards. Jarvis Landry, 6 receptions, 71 yards for the Dolphins. They had 1 touchdown because the Patriots defense knew that I was starting them, so therefore they automatically came through in the clutch for me and got me 17 points, or however many points it was, which was very much needed. This was, once again, a fired-up Dolphins team that you'd think, oh, man, I really don't know if they're going to go into Foxborough and get it done. And the Patriots said, oh, that's cute. You guys blew out the Texans. You got all that offense. Here, have 7 points. And I don't even know how many total yards. Not even 300 total yards. Actually, it was. I'm sorry. It was just a little over 300 total yards. But in the passing department,
rushing yards, yeah.
Exactly. So
30 rushing yards total.
The Patriots basically said to the Dolphins, you guys are cute. Stay where you are.
Yeah.
We challenge anybody to try and come and beat us.
Well, and that's the team the Patriots are. They are so far above.
Exactly.
Obviously we haven't seen them play any of the other undefeated teams. But I think even among the undefeated teams are different levels. You got the Patriots, and they're obviously the top. Then you got the Packers, but even they don't feel like they're quite on the Patriots level. Then you got the Broncos, and they got this amazing defense, but obviously their offense is just terrible.
They're trying to figure it out, believe it or not.
And then you got the Panthers, and everyone sees them as just kind of that bottom tier. Yeah, they're undefeated, but again, you guys are cute. This is going to end eventually. I disagree. I think they're pretty good, but the Patriots are just, I don't know about 19-0. I know they did 18-0.
Well, 18-1, yeah.
Well,
they lost in the Super Bowl
eventually, yeah. So I don't know about that. I don't even know about 16-0. You look at, obviously they're going to be favored no matter who they're playing.
Here's my question: who are they going to lose to? They play the Redskins.
Okay, that's
then
a
they
win.
play in New York against the Giants. They play the Bills. Then they have to play in Denver against the Broncos. That's the only game on the remaining schedule. Because after that, Eagles, are you kidding me? That's a win. Texans, that's a win.
Yeah.
Titans, a win.
Yeah.
In New York against the Jets, that could be
one of the games.
one.
Yeah.
And then they play in Miami against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So
they got 2 potential screw-ups here.
Broncos and Jets. Now,
obviously, you're going to take the Patriots in either of those games.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that determines that Broncos game, I think, is tonight.
Yeah.
When the Packers and the Broncos play, they're both undefeated right now. Somebody's got to win, obviously.
Right.
If they tie, I'm going to be shocked.
Yeah.
But the point with that is, if the Broncos lose, that I believe will show you that their offense cannot reach the level they're looking for. They can have a fantastic defense, but you have to be able to score points one way or another.
Right.
And Tom Brady does not throw interceptions.
Nope.
When he does, it's like, I don't know, finding some like a.
Was he have one all year?
It's like finding a $5 bill in a snowbank in the wintertime. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
So that my point is with that.
Yeah, if the
Broncos, I'm saying, yeah, exactly. And if the Broncos lose tonight to Green Bay, I think the Patriots win that game in Denver against the Broncos.
Yeah, I think they win it regardless, unless the defense is going to have to score against New England for them to win that game. Because
exactly.
the Patriots defense is good. People don't think so, but it is, and not in this dominant sort of way that Denver's is, but in a way, I don't want to even call it bend but don't break, because that's so overused. It's such a cliche.
But it's true.
But they're like that. But then they also have, I don't know, they're just better than the roster that they have, and I think that I guess when you see that players who shouldn't be playing as well as they are at a higher level, I think you got to look at the coaching at that point. When you have fantastic players, who cares about the coaching?
And we have said this many times with the coaching.
Right. But so I think the system, the how good their defense is playing in it, and then how good their offense is, which is pretty much unstoppable. I don't see anyone beating them. I'm not saying that no one isn't going to beat them. I just can't see it. But, if it happens, it happens. And it wouldn't surprise me in those two games. I think the Jets have the best shot of doing it because they're more balanced.
And we saw how close that game was a couple weeks ago.
Yep, they've got the wide receivers, and they've obviously got the defense just as well. I know they're a notch below Denver right now, but I think that's the game. So, Patriots, very, 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 very good this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The question then is there anybody else in the league, NFC, AFC, who can beat the Patriots? Can the Bengals beat the Patriots?
That would be an interesting game. I don't think so.
It would require a playoff scenario.
Yeah.
And we know how the Bengals are in the playoffs.
Right. I don't think so. I think that's when just experience and savvy sort of is the determining factor in teams, because the Bengals match up pretty well because they've got the stud wide receiver, they've got a decent enough pair of running backs, and they've got a similar defense to the Patriots where it's, on paper it's like, it's not that great, but the way they actually
gets the job done.
Yeah, they get the job done. And Andy Dalton this year is just playing out of his mind. So I that's an interesting one. I think they've got just as good a shot as anybody. And then obviously the Packers, just because Aaron Rodgers, if anyone is playing close to Tom Brady, it's Aaron Rodgers. So we've seen him work magic when he maybe necessarily shouldn't. And I'd like to see them play Carolina.
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah.
Then you can't forget about the Panthers. You can't forget about the Falcons, who are literally a year later once again battling for the NFC South, only their records are unbelievable at this point right now compared to last year.
Yeah, and I want to like the Falcons, and I definitely think they're on the upswing, obviously, with the discovery that is Devontae Freeman and his breakout year, and their new coach, Dan Quinn. The defense, again, their defense was terrible last year, and so the increase to this year is huge. But I don't think they're there yet. You look at Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and those guys, and they're at a different level. Matt Ryan, I think, was there when the Falcons were really, really dominant, when they were going like 12-4, 13-3 every year. I don't think he's quite there anymore. He's fallen off, just as Joe Flacco has a little bit. I still would take them over almost any other quarterback except for that maybe top 2 or 3 group. I think they're right there. But they're a good team. Falcons, yes. I'm tempted to throw them in the mix, but I don't think they even come close to beating the Patriots.
Quick wrap on this before we move on to our second game. The New England Patriots have a plus 116 point differential. That is the best in the NFL. The next best team, plus 96, the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow, yeah.
Very interesting. I always like seeing the point differentials, which is between points for and points against. The Patriots have the most points for in the NFL, and there is nobody that's even really close, again, except the Arizona Cardinals. There are only 2 teams who have scored 200 or more points this year. The Patriots are first. The Cardinals are second. The second game that we are going to look at this on this show is Minnesota and Michigan. And before we get to it, honorable mentions, as we always announce every week. Surprisingly, exactly what I thought would be the case, Stanford and Washington State. Brent didn't want to pick it. I did, and we didn't. So, honorable mention to Stanford and Washington State, as Stanford won on a botched field goal by the Cougars, believe it or not. Honorable mention to Notre Dame and Temple.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about this one.
It was a heck of a game, though.
Oh, that was a good one to watch. Whew. Also, honorable mention to North Carolina and Pitt. That turned out to be a surprisingly close game. And because for whatever reason there is no such thing as defense in the Big 12 anymore. Oklahoma State and Texas Tech.
Wow.
Woo, what a barn burner on both sides. My goodness. But we get to Michigan and Minnesota, the fighting former Jerry Kills in Minneapolis, taking on the fighting Jim Harbaughs. And what a game this was. Oh, my goodness. Jake Rudock, I don't remember if he returned or not. I don't think he returned.
He didn't.
It was Wilton Spate who stayed in the rest of the way, and Michigan somehow squeaked it out and picked up the 29-26 win.
Minnesota had the ball on, I think they said about the 3-foot line, or even less than that. No, I think they said 18 inches is what it was.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's what, a foot and a half. So half a yard.
It hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts for Minnesota.
18 inches and 2 seconds on the clock. Mm-hmm. And you choose to either kick the field goal, which is pretty much a sure
chip
thing.
Shot, yeah.
Or go for the win on a night when the emotions are running as high as they ever will for Minnesota, and they went for it, and they didn't get it.
And they got stuffed, and Michigan escapes, and they're now 6-2 and 3-1 in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with going for it on a quarterback sneak.
Well, why wouldn't you? Well, was it in the middle of the field? I can't remember. Was it on a hash mark or was it in the middle of the field? If it's in the middle of the field, either A, you're going to run a jet sweep to either side because you're going to have everybody stacked in the middle.
Right.
So then that's when you run the jet sweeps. Or B, if it's right in the middle of the field, you kick the field goal.
Yeah, I don't know. I would pass. But
why would you pass when you're that close?
Because you only have one shot. Now, if you have it on the 18-inch line with, first down or second down or third down, but not when you only have one shot.
I'm running the football. I'm not running the football straight up the gut. I'm running the football to the outside.
Really? See, that's the last thing I would do.
No, because then you're forcing all these big defensive linemen that Michigan has put in to stack them on the line of scrimmage, expecting a jam shot up the middle.
Yeah, but they're going to have
expecting
people
them to race to the outside.
There's going to be someone on the guy who's running the sweep.
You're telling me they're going to be able to get to a speedy Rodney Smith or Shannon Brooks? They're going to be able to get out there? I don't think so. See, again, this all is based off of if the ball was in the middle of the field and not on one of the hash marks.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. But the point is, Minnesota falling, really
loss.
A heartbreaking loss.
Yeah.
Michigan continues
Michigan's
to
the better
somehow
team,
stay
though,
alive with the fighting Jim Harbaugh's leading the way.
Well,
this was another.
Michigan's got what, one loss?
Yeah,
just to Michigan State.
They've got two.
Oh, two.
One conference loss.
Yeah, who'd they lose to?
Utah.
Utah. Yeah, which that loss actually doesn't look quite as good now. But really, they should only have one. They should have won against Michigan State.
Yeah.
So they're a good team. Michigan's, their defense
Utah's a good team too.
Unreal.
Don't go hating on Utah.
I know. I love them just as much as you, but they're not looking so hot the past couple weeks.
They just for some reason can't win in Southern California. I don't know why.
I don't know.
I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They're okay. Utah's fine. They won yesterday anyway, so
I know, but
they're fine. Don't worry about Utah, Brent. They're going to be okay.
All right.
They still are probably going to end up taking Stanford in the Pac-12 championship anyways. I think.
Bet they win.
No. That's no. Never mind. That is incorrect information because they're both in the Pac-12 North.
Oh,
Utah
so they'll have to
and Stanford. So that means they play each other. No, they don't. Well, I'm confused. Obviously, I don't know anything here. They are in the Pac-12 South. I'm sorry. So I was right in the beginning. It will be Stanford and Utah, more than likely, in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a good game.
Which is going to be a good one. Yes, very good one. Utah and Stanford, I'm looking forward to that. Moving on now, but first, before we do.
You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast. On Facebook.com/TheRoute2 and on Twitter at @the_route2.
It is now time to debut the new segment of the show in which we are calling it That's What's Really Going On with Brent Bonfleur. We'll get you an intro hopefully next week.
Yeah.
But now, this is where the Husker Football Podcast merges into the show.
Yeah.
And
I think y'all have some opinions
no,
on this.
I think I will too.
Yeah.
I think I will say this before you get going.
Mm-hmm.
I said last week, if you're a Husker fan, you have to drop your expectations for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because it's over.
Right.
They lost to Northwestern at home in a close game. You just have to forget it the rest of the way. But losing to Purdue is very, very difficult to overlook.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm watching this game yesterday with my roommate. We're sitting on the couch, and everyone, you get on Twitter and stuff because everyone's after every play they go, "Oh, this is the worst decision ever by the coaching staff," or "Oh, how could he throw that ball?" or "Oh, the refs hate us." And I'm just reading all these comments, and I've known this for a while. I don't know why I pretended I didn't yesterday, or why it was like a sudden realization of this fact that Nebraska Cornhusker football fans are delusional and living in the past. They haven't woken up from this dream that was the 1995 season, and I know
97
and 97 too, but really 1995, which is the team I'm going to compare to because it's considered one of the best teams of all time. I know the 1997 team was good too, but people expect those results, and that's unrealistic. So in 1995, Nebraska goes undefeated. They beat Florida, and I know,
poor Brent.
I know it's terrible, but that's okay. I was 1 year old at the time. I'll get over it.
Yeah.
And they dominated everyone they played that year. Even top, a lot of their teams. If you look at their divisional standings at the time, they were like, it was Nebraska at 12-0, and then there were like 4 teams at 10-2. Most of which, one of those losses came from Nebraska, and they were blowout losses for those teams. Because Nebraska that season, they averaged over 50 points a game and gave up on average less than 15. They had 30 players from that team go on to the NFL or other professional football leagues at the time that existed. And they had Heisman Trophy winner. They had numerous players who, once they got to the NFL, became some of the best players in that franchise's history. Amon Green is one.
Amon Green.
I don't know. How do you pronounce his
Amon.
name? Amon. I didn't say Amon.
Amon Green.
I said Amon.
Anyways.
And Nebraska fans expect to see that type of play. I don't even think it'd be good enough for Nebraska fans. It's not good enough for Nebraska fans to see wins, because if they were just happy with wins, they would have been fine with Bo Pelini. I know they say, well, it's just the blowouts. It was the way we lost. Mm-hmm. Well, you weren't really happy with the wins either, because they weren't by 40 points.
Mm-hmm. Like in the 90s.
Right. But it's not the 90s. It's 2015. You're 18 years removed from the last time Nebraska won the national championship, and 20 years removed from that dream season in 95. That's 20 years. I was 1 year old when this was going on. So as I'm sitting on my couch, I see all these people, and most of them are friends or they're media members, and they're saying, well, Nebraska, they make excuses for everything.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the talent, and this is the biggest one. This is the one I'm going to focus on. We've got the talent. We talked about this last week.
You're picking on me, aren't you?
How do you say that? I think I
said they have the talent, and they
in our last Husker podcast. No,
I'm not believing you on that.
No, they don't.
They have the talent at the receiving core, at the defensive line. Trent Bray has brought life into this linebacking core.
They have like maybe five players.
No, if you go on that, yes.
At top tier. That's what matters, because the teams that Nebraska, when you look at their 1995 team, all of their players would have started at their, how do you say it? Amon Green. Amon Green was a backup. That's how good they were. If you look at their quarterbacks, they had Tommy Frazier, and then they had Brooke Behringer behind him. They Grant Windstrom. You're gonna compare Jack Gangwish to Grant Windstrom? Like, give me a break.
That's what our out of play was gonna be.
Yeah,
was Jack Gangwish.
Oh,
we'll talk about that another time too. Okay. By the way,
yeah, we sure can.
We need to explain Brent Bonfleur's disapproval for Jack Gangwish, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyways,
whatever. Well, just for one part of, anyway, let's get back to what's at hand, which is, this is what's really going on, because people say they make excuses, and ultimately what they come back to is Mike Riley, and they say, well, this is just obviously the wrong hire. And like, I wish Bo Pelini was back. These same people who like were so ecstatic when he was finally let go by Nebraska, and then they were so thrilled with the Mike Riley pick. Yeah, it came out of left field, but still, they were like, "Oh yeah, think about it. Yeah, this could work. This is a good move." And they blame the coach for that game yesterday, 55-45 loss, and they're gonna blame Mike Riley for that. Are you kidding me? They didn't have their starting quarterback. The backup had 5 turnovers, of which...
Oh, it was 5.
4
I'm sorry.
interceptions and a fumble,
Yep.
off of which Purdue had more than half their points. I don't know if you're going to credit touchdowns for each one, but at least 4 of them they scored touchdowns off of. And they were bad throws. My argument is that he lost that game. I know he had 400 yards, Riker Fife, and 4 touchdowns as well.
I can debunk that myself.
Okay, well, whatever. And the defense played horribly too. They're just not a very good team, and that's because of the players. What scheme did Mike Riley have that didn't work? I mean, you're just getting outplayed by subpar players, which just shows you how little real talent there actually is on that team, because truly talented teams, they don't lose games like that. And it doesn't matter. Alabama could play Purdue right now without Nick Saban on the sideline and they'd win. Ohio State could do the same thing. Nebraska's just not very good. And people are looking at this team each year through the lens of the 1995 season, and that's what they... Giving me the rant music?
Because it's fitting. It's very fitting.
And it's just so, you just look at it from the outside and you go, are you people just crazy? You're delusional. Nebraska, they expect Nebraska to win every game. They expect them to win in a blowout type of fashion, and they expect them to bring home the national championship trophy every single year. And it's just dumb. And I don't know why they can't get, again, we talked about this with other programs, but Nebraska is by far the worst, and maybe just because I'm around it the most. I don't know. Maybe USC fans think that they deserve to win the national.
You see it from a first-person perspective.
Yeah.
And I bet you Shelley Smith could probably give us some great insight, Shelley Smith from ESPN,
about some USC fans.
The USC view of things and how that works out.
Yeah, but even there, I don't think it's as bad as it is at Nebraska. Because USC fans, I think, were fine when their teams were still winning 10 or 11 games a season. Sure, they weren't undefeated and winning the national championship. But I don't know how people can have this expectation and think that it's in any remote sense reasonable. It's just not. And then to blame the coach because these, subpar players. I mean, how many 5-star players does Nebraska have?
Probably 1.
Who is it?
I don't even know.
Because I don't think they do. I think they have a couple 4-stars, a handful of 3, and a few 2s, and then it's 1 or none after that. They're just not very good. And to blame it on a first-year coach, I really wish we could see how Bo Pelini would have done in this exact same situation. Maybe they win a couple more games, but I don't know.
I don't think they lose to Purdue.
I think it says a lot about Mike Riley and what he's instituted here, that Nebraska continued to fight literally until the last play of that Purdue game. They were, and had they
lost by 10 in a game in which they should have lost by 30.
Yeah. If you're going out that, or if you have Tommy Armstrong in there, they probably win by about that same margin. I don't know. Mike Riley is probably the only thing that kept them in that game, and people are saying he's the reason they lost. And that's so off base.
No, I agree with.
Players are the ones who ultimately go out there and do it, and Nebraska just does not have the best players. I'm not saying Mike Riley's the best coach in the country. He's not. He's probably not even close. I probably wouldn't put him in the top 10, but he's the best Nebraska's going to get. So there you go. That's what's really going on. The players are the ones. The players are the reason Nebraska is, what are we now? 3-5?
3-6.
3-6. The players are the reason Nebraska is 3-6. It's not Mike Riley.
If you saw I think the Daily Nebraskan had the best photo. The student-run newspaper had the best photo of the weekend. It was Mike Riley shaking the hand of Riker Fife, who was walking off the field. And Riker Fife has this look on his face like, I don't even want to deal with you, coach. But he's still shaking his hand. That, I think, is the perfect picture to describe what seems to be, as the season continues, a disconnect between the players and the coaches, at least Mike Riley and the coaches. Now, some aspects, the offensive line and Mike Cavanaugh, offensive line coach, they're working great. Linebackers coach, Trent Bray with the linebackers, they're working great. Other areas, not so much. Now, I will tell you, this is all you can't tell me that you didn't expect Riker Fife to come into this game and play great. Because this is his first career start.
Yeah, right. No one would expect
if you
that.
didn't
Except
expect
Husker
him,
fans.
if you didn't expect him to not make at least 3 turnovers as far as the interceptions go, then you're wrong.
Really?
Because you had
3?
You had to
have
expect
at least 3.
You had to expect him to come into this game and make mistakes.
Sure.
Because it's his first game as a starter.
But not 5. And not even really 3
4
against
interceptions and a fumble.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I expected that.
Okay.
At minimum 3.
Okay.
I expected that.
Wow.
Because Riker Fife, again, it's his first start. It's
Right.
on the road.
Right.
So you can't expect him to be great. But, I mean, for him to throw 4 touchdowns and over 400 yards, come on.
Credit who?
Riker Fife.
Credit who? That he played that well? Are you kidding?
He's the one that's out there making the plays.
Yeah.
I said this with Bo Pelini. At the end of the day, Bo Pelini can make those calls. He can make those calls. Mike Riley can make those calls. But at the
Mike
end
Riley
of the day,
and his
they
offensive
are
coaching
not
staff,
out there making the plays.
Yeah.
The players are.
Right.
Which also goes back to your point. This is on the players.
Right.
The success in this game that also happened from Riker Fife throwing over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, that's also Riker Fife's success.
It is his success. You're right. But I think his success was vastly increased by the system and Mike Riley and his coaching staff.
Yes.
Because they've done the same thing with Tommy Armstrong. If Bo Pelini and his coaching staff and Tim Beck were in there, can you imagine Riker Five's head if Tim Beck was playing?
It would have been more balanced.
Calling the plays?
Because you had 407 yards passing and only 77 rushing yards.
Right.
That's where the problem also lies. They won't run the football.
They can't.
They can. They can, Brent. They can. They have Terrell Newby, Amani Cross. They have Divine Azigbo. They have a long list of running backs. You can give the ball to anyone. They will run the football.
Yeah.
You have to run the right plays running the football. And that's the problem. That's where it goes to the disconnect between the coaches and the players. because the running backs that are at Nebraska right now are built for a Bo Pelini, Tim Beck style of offense, which includes jet sweeps, the option, running up the gut, quarterback draws, quarterback sneaks around the outside. In this style of offense with Mike Riley and with Danny Langsdorf, it is a pass style offense, which means you're not going to see the option really at all. You're not going to see a lot of jet sweeps. You're going to see a very minimal running attack unless it somehow ends up being where the rhythm is right for Nebraska to run the football. Where they see success, they're going to go with it. It wasn't happening in this game, so they went to the automatic option, which is to pass and pass and pass. You can't do that with a new quarterback. I understand he had the reps during the week. He should know the offense by now. But when it's his first career start on the road, you can't expect him to run it just like Tommy Armstrong would.
Right.
And Riker Fife is even more implemented into the Bo Pelini, Tim Beck style of offense than Tommy Armstrong was, because Tommy Armstrong has been able to transition out of that because he's been starting. Riker Fife hasn't.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on the defensive side of the ball, if you're going to tell me that there's any tape out there anywhere on David Blau of Purdue, I want to know where it is.
Right.
Because I guarantee you there's not one school in this country, especially in Nebraska, that had tape on David Blau. And David Blau only threw for 274 yards. He had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 28 of 43.
Is that his first start?
That was his first career start.
So why didn't Riker Fife have that good of a game?
Because Purdue is not in the middle of a coaching transition, Brent. David Blau
But they're terrible.
knows the system that is being run by Coach Harrell in West Lafayette because it's been implemented for the last 3 or 4 years. This is brand new at Nebraska.
David Blau's a freshman.
So
he doesn't know any better. This is his first year in the system.
But he's learned. But he hasn't been instructed a different way in the college football.
Okay, that's fair.
Aspect
That's
of
fair.
things.
He hasn't.
So he's able to adjust to a new thing because he's a freshman. He's, college football obviously is different from high school football by a grand sense.
Riker Fife isn't coming from nothing to a new system.
Exactly.
He's coming from an old
He's
system
coming
to a
from
system.
Tim
But
back
still,
to
they've had
Danny
the same
Langsdorf.
amount of time in the new system.
But
I will grant you
they
it is a
haven't
little
played
it is a little
in-game
different.
experience with that. It's practice. It's against the practice squad. It's against secondary guys.
Or maybe Blau's just a better quarterback, a better player, better athlete than Riker Fife is.
No, I disagree with that. Riker Fife can run the football. He can pass the football.
Who had more
but
rushing
not
yards?
In a Danny Langsdorf, Mike Riley sense. Riker Fife was built for Bo Pelini and Tim Beck. That's why when we saw him out there a couple of times last year, he did well.
Well, who should have been at quarterback then?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Tommy Armstrong.
Well, he's injured, so obviously that can't happen.
So then you have to go with the second guy on the depth chart because Mike Riley has set that depth chart up in the way that that Riker Fife is the second guy. So my point is, yes, you can throw the blame on the players, especially the defense, because that secondary, you can't put words to it how bad it is. And yes, I said, again, I go back to what I have said. You have to drop your expectations for the season. You have to do it, especially for that defense. Now, defense doesn't really have to adjust as much to a new scheme as the offense does, because offense is more complex than defense. At the end of the day, defense is you tackle a guy who's got the football, you blitz, you rush, you drop back in coverage, and you make sure that you have an ability to have an awareness to know where the football is and cover the guy you're assigned to. It's simple stuff. In offense, it's way more complicated. You've got blocking schemes. You've got wide receiver schemes. You got a quarterback scheme. You got a running back scheme. You got a tight end scheme. You've got scheme after scheme after scheme, and you've got play after play after play. Defense is man or zone. Simple as that. Blitz or no blitz. It's simple stuff. So this defense, for whatever reason, especially in the secondary, is a lot worse than we thought. And you can blame them for that because they just don't have enough experience or they're just not as good.
Right.
I cannot see enough blame get thrown on Riker 5. I can't. You can't throw blame on him. You can't throw as much blame on him. 4 interceptions, yeah, that's unacceptable. Tommy Armstrong had 5 in a game in Memorial Stadium against Michigan State 2 years ago. So
and who did we blame for that loss?
That was Tommy Armstrong. But that was not his first start of his career.
Riker gets a little bit of benefit.
Yes, you can't throw all of this blame on Riker 5.
I'm not throwing all of it.
It has to be,
about 60%.
at the end of the day, it has to be blame on everybody because
that's ultimately my
who rushed
point.
the football for 77 yards? Yes, that's the running backs. That's the players. But that is also a designed call from Danny Langsdorff. That is what they do. So I am saying, to sum this all up finally here as we continue on, you can't throw all the blame on the players. Defensively, yes, I will agree with that fully. Offensively, that has to be on the players, but more on the coaches because, again, they're going with a scheme that doesn't, at least right now, fit at Nebraska because these players are not used to an outside, non-traditional Nebraska style of offense, which is a mixed running and passing attack. This is lopsided. This is what we said at the beginning of the season cannot happen because you can throw and throw and throw, but if you can't mix in the run and get the defense off its balance and have them guessing, you won't win football games. You also won't win football games if you don't have a secondary that can stop a rookie quarterback. But again, that's a totally different story because nobody had film on David Blau. Nobody. So that's not really anybody's fault. You just go with what you can go with. Here.
Although I guess we differ in our opinion as to why, but we both agree that expectations are way too high. Maybe you don't agree that they're delusional.
No, I agree. Yeah. I say they're delusional. The fans are delusional.
Yeah, it's insane.
We've seen this during the Bo Pelini, about half of the Bo Pelini era, and then halfway through the Bo Pelini era up through now. The delusion has come back.
Yeah, big time.
Because, we couldn't be patient with Bo Pelini. And now we really can't be patient. But again, Husker fans wanted a new head coach. They wanted to avoid the big game blowouts.
Right.
So again, this is what the fans wanted. I keep saying that. This is what they wanted. And this is what they're going to get.
Yeah, haven't been blown out yet.
You want to not lose blowout games? All right, fine. How about you lose 6 games in the 9 that you've played so far?
By a combined 23 points.
Well, yeah, now that number has been inflated because you lost to 10 by Purdue.
Which is still a ridiculously small margin.
But you lost to Purdue. Purdue, a team with 1 win.
Yeah.
That's almost the equivalent of losing to a winless Kansas team.
Yeah, it's bad. I agree. It's
so
bad.
This is what Husker fans wanted.
But that's because the Purdue loss is bad anyway. You never want your team to lose to a 1-6 team. But, in the same sense, how many other fans of other programs would be thrilled if their quarterback threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, even with the 4 interceptions?
They'd be a lot. I'd be feeling great.
Right. And how many teams how many fans have never seen their team score 45 points? even if it's in a loss. I mean, Nebraska
That
fans'
only
expectations
marks-
are so high that we look at this and we're like, it's the end of the world. We lost to Purdue.
By the way, yesterday's loss, fun fact, marks only the third time in program history that Nebraska has scored more than 40 points and lost a game. It has happened twice in less than a year.
Wow.
Yeah. The USC bowl game loss,
Hey.
and then yesterday.
The lowest point typically comes right before the next high.
You would certainly hope. By the way, interesting fun fact. This is, of course, everybody's talking about Bill Callahan and the Bill Callahan years. In 2004, Bill Callahan's first season as head coach at Nebraska, the Huskers lost their second game of the season to Southern Miss in Lincoln, 21-17. They then won the next two. They beat Kansas in that fourth game of the season. They won 14-8. Then they lost to Texas Tech 70-10. 70-10.
That's
So
rough.
that is the worst loss in program history. Let us not. We can talk
60
about this
points.
Purdue thing all we want. That is the worst loss
Yeah.
that Nebraska has ever had in program history.
Yeah, that's
was
bad.
Texas Tech. Let's all the Nebraska media stop saying that this was the worst loss ever, including the student newspaper. That yesterday was not the worst loss ever in program history. Texas Tech in 2004 was. Then Nebraska beat Baylor. Then they lost to K-State. They beat Missouri. They lost the next three. Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Colorado for a grand total of 6 losses and 5 wins.
Yeah. Which is still possible.
But it
Very
probably
improbable.
won't happen.
Very improbable. But
So-
I bet you
The point is, 2004 was just as bad with Bill Callahan as it was right now with Mike Riley.
Yeah.
2 very different style of coaches, but they both came from the West Coast, which is really the creepy part about it.
Yeah.
Now, I have nothing against the West Coast,
Well,
by
we
the
need
way.
to wrap this up.
Yeah, I know. We keep going on here. So the point is, wrapping it up for Brent, that's what's really going on.
That's what's really going on. It's unrealistic expectations and underperforming players. That's not the coaches.
And for me, yesterday was not the worst loss in program history, okay? I'm going to make that very clear. 2004 Texas Tech, that was the worst loss in program history. That was also on the road, too, by the way. Wrapping things up here finally. By the way, you can hear Brent Bonfleur and the KRNU sports staff this Saturday evening, actually. It's a night game in mid-November.
Prime time.
Live from Memorial Stadium with the Husker Countdown pregame show beginning at, I believe, or around, should be 5:20? No.
Around 15 minutes before.
I'm sorry. That's 4:50. Yes, 4:50
What time
p.m.
is the
Central
game?
Time. It's a 6 o'clock game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4:50.
4:45.
4:45, 4:50 at there or about, somewhere around there. 4:55, 4:50 pregame show on the University of Nebraska-Lincoln student radio station 90.3 KRNU. Time to get to predictions. I am putting them together literally as we speak. I'm putting together the NFL portion of it as it is right now. So, Brent Bonfleur, you go first. We got some 3 awesome games this weekend for college football, including Florida State taking on Clemson.
Yeah,
In Death
Clemson.
Valley, the East Coast Death Valley, that is.
I'd pick Clemson even if they were the worst team in the country and Florida State was number 1. I'm never going to pick Florida State to win. But I think Clemson wins this game. I think they win pretty easily. Florida State's, they're okay. They're not as good, especially with Everett Golson. I know we had this conversation last night at quarterback than the other guy.
Shawn McGuire.
Shawn McGuire.
Now, interestingly enough, another fun fact, Shawn McGuire beat Clemson in overtime last year when Jameis Winston was suspended.
True.
But that was a home game.
Right. It's different. And that this Clemson team is much better than that one, I think. So I think Clemson wins by probably 2 touchdowns.
All right. Fair enough. I'm going to say Clemson because it's so very hard to win in Death Valley, especially when that place is just jumping. So Clemson, though, look for Sean McGuire to start. If he doesn't start, then definitely Clemson. Another good one. This is going to be, I'm going to make sure I watch this game. TCU undefeated, Oklahoma State undefeated.
Yeah, and Oklahoma State, I mean, they've got the offense. We saw 70 points. Granted, that's against Texas Tech, whose defense is even worse than TCU's. I think TCU is just too good. I don't see them losing to anyone except maybe Baylor in the Big 12 championship game. Wait. Yeah.
There is no Big 12
championship game. This is the exact same conversation we had last year.
Yeah.
Right? Remember when TCU and they wanted to see them play Baylor and they don't? So that means that the closest thing to the Big 12 championship game would be if both of them made the playoff and were playing each other. So I think TCU is going to go undefeated. I think they'll probably make the national championship, so I definitely don't see them losing to Oklahoma State.
I've got Oklahoma State, my friend. I've
What?
got Oklahoma State.
Oh, really?
Home game. Plus, I think Oklahoma State might be underrated. And I think they
that's
like
true,
that.
too.
I think they like it that way.
And I don't think this is going to be an easy game, and I think TCU might actually trail for a good portion.
I've seen TCU struggle a little bit at times this year, and that makes me think, man, Oklahoma State, you get them in a shootout with somebody, I think the Cowboys are probably going to win it.
Javon Boykin, I mean, he's clutch, and I don't hardly ever use that word. The only word I try to use less is solid, but Javon Boykin is clutch.
Yeah.
And he just knows, he just seems to be able to make plays.
Aaron Green, very good
whenever
too,
he
by the
needs
way.
it. Yeah, and what's the receiver, Doxson? Or Dobson, whichever one it is. I think TCU is just a little too good. But I could see this being like a 55-53 type of thing.
Yeah. I've got Oklahoma State.
Okay.
Now we got to pick LSU, Alabama. No.
This is by far
Speaking
the
of
toughest
difficult
one.
games to
Yeah.
pick.
I mean, they go in order. The first one was easily the easiest. The second one was a little tougher. But this is hard. And I think Alabama wins. You take away Leonard Fournette from LSU, and do you think they're really that good? I know they are still a very good team. The defense is good. The quarterback has never been great, but is still okay. But you take away him, and do you think this is even that close of a game? I don't think so. I think he's such a huge part, and I think Alabama's got, one, the talent to stop him, and two, a running back that's almost as good. Now, not nearly as dominating, but he's actually got more touchdowns than Fournette does, Derrick Henry. And, he's got noticeably less yards, but, we're talking like 400 a year. He's still got like 1,500 yards or something like that. Ridiculous.
Some ungodly number.
Yeah. So, again, I think this comes down really to whose quarterback plays better. And I have just a little bit more faith in Alabama as a whole. I think Alabama. And I think it's close, too. I think this is like a 26-27 type of game.
If Ole Miss can beat Bama in... I forgot where Alabama play. Tuscaloosa. Oh, my gosh. I'm sorry. If Ole Miss can beat Bama in Tuscaloosa, why can't LSU do it?
Yeah.
And so, and LSU is just as dangerous as Ole Miss is when they rolled in there.
Yeah.
So
I think they're
going
much
with
better
LSU.
team than Ole Miss is. Yeah.
I'm definitely going with LSU.
Well, I think, and actually, I would probably agree with you if the roles were reversed, but Alabama's an underdog.
At home.
In this situation.
At home.
Alabama, yeah. I think...
I'm going with LSU.
Okay, I'm going Alabama. We'll see.
All right, fair enough. To the NFL, 3 games here.
Yeah.
2 of them include the Panthers and the Colts in some way, and we'll start with tomorrow night's Monday Night Football game, Colts versus Panthers. Brent Bonfleur.
Panthers.
Yeah. Simple enough. I agree.
If Andrew Luck was Andrew Luck then maybe.
Not having a bad year,
Yeah.
Although apparently it was released today, about an hour ago, Andrew Luck has been playing with 3 fractured ribs.
Yeah, which, hey, I'm not saying
Since week
he's
3.
just totally falling off the face of the planet. That's a pretty good excuse, 3 fractured ribs.
Yeah.
But still, the fact remains he's not playing as well as he has the past couple of years, and Cam Newton is playing out of his mind, making this offense that has no players on it except for Greg Olsen look at least good enough. I won't say great, but the defenses look great, and they've got Luke Kuechly back. Yeah, Panthers fairly easily.
How about this one? I'm going to say Panthers. How about Packers versus Panthers a week from today?
Yeah, that's a much better game. I'm tempted to say Carolina, but I don't think so. I think they get their first loss against the Packers, and I think it's real close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can say Green Bay?
Possession. Yeah.
I'm sorry, John Kipper, if you're listening to this portion of the podcast.
Wow.
I think Carolina is a more complete team than Green Bay.
Oh, I agree with that.
Green Bay's running game has not been what it was the past couple of years. They are struggling on the ground.
Yeah.
And their defense is sometimes susceptible. We saw the Chargers do that last week.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. I'm telling you.
You're going with Carolina?
I think the Panthers are a more complete team than Green Bay.
I agree. And again, that's why I said it's so close. I think I'm just going with benefit of the doubt here. But, it's still going to go with the Packers. But just barely. Just some Aaron Rodgers magic is what's going to save them in this time.
Now, getting back to the Colts, they will host Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos.
Man, the Colts offense is just not, again, we just talked about it. It's not what it has been, and that defense is so good.
It is.
Now, if you ask me who plays better, Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning, I'm still probably going to say Andrew Luck, which just shows how far Peyton has fallen. But as far as teams, again, I don't think this one is even too close. I just think Indianapolis is going to have a hard time. Just getting any sort of points against that defense. I
see Andrew Luck under a lot of pressure when it comes to the Denver Broncos front 4 and front 7 too. So I've got the Broncos as well. And that is going to do it for this very, very long podcast. We do apologize for that, but hopefully you'll find a lot of good material in this one. Definitely a great one in store. No Husker football podcast. Devin is off this week. And I guess we will just have to have our college football playoff podcast discussion, whatever it is. We'll have that next week after the first polls are released and what we expect for the future with the college football playoff and who we think are the top 4 teams in college football.
Yeah.
We definitely have an idea now. We'll probably have a better idea next week. So we'll wait till the first poll is released, and then we'll have our podcast next Sunday. Big thanks, as always, to Brent Bonfleur. Great stuff today. Great first debut segment.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the future
with
those.
so long.
Yeah.
They won't go that long.
But you love it, though. That's good stuff. We'll see you next week. Facebook.com/TheRoute2 @the_Route2 on Twitter, and our website, theroute2.wordpress.com. We'll see you next week.